This is an exclusive presentation of WOWO 1190 AM and 107.5 FM, Unholstered.
It is time for another edition of Unholstered. Welcome on in. We're glad you're able to hang out with us this weekend. My name is Kayla Blakesley. I represent the local media side here on Unholstered, and I'm sitting alongside my co-host, Sophia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Captain Sophia Rosales-Catino of the Fort Wayne Police Department, and welcome to Unholstered.
Yeah, obviously, Sophia represents the local police side of things. This show is all about the local media teaming up with the local police department to share and tell all of the stories and talk about all of the things that don't often get discussed when it comes to law enforcement. And we say it every week, no topic is off limits. And boy, Sophia, we are diving in to a lot today.
Head first.
Yeah, we're diving in head first. I've been so anxious to get to this. It kind of started out as the topic of just like soft on crime policies. But it kind of took an interesting turn for us because for folks who don't know it, Illinois just announced a couple of weeks ago that they are getting ready to eliminate the cash bail system called January 1, 2023. And to me, that kind of funnels into that soft on crime conversation. But before we really get into the nuts and bolts of all of this, Sophia, I think it's so important that we are all on the same page. So can you just start by kind of explaining what the cash bail system currently is?
So basically what it is the people are arrested on offenses, misdemeanor felony offenses. They're taken to jail. In order for you to get out of jail, you're supposed to post a bond, what they call a bond. So this is a preset amount of money that you would post to ensure your attendance at court, your arraignment. Usually it's like when you see it, the bonds used to be, back when I was on the street, more on third shift, it was like $750 for a misdemeanor offense, but you only have to post 10% of that.
Right? Yeah.
So it's like $75 and you're out. Now, here in Allen County, most of the misdemeanor offenses are your own recognizance. So it means you're OR'd. No bail needs to be posted.
For misdemeanors. But that's not the same for felonies,
not
right?
the same for felonies. Felonies still have the cash bond. And then you're let go and then come in for arraignment the next morning. That's how it is here. I don't think that's going to be leaving anytime soon for us.
Let's hope not.
Unless the legislature chooses different, but I don't think that's even on their plate at this point to take a cashless bail system.
Okay, so then why is it that there are a lot of folks, there are a lot of groups, there are a lot of organizations who oppose the cash bail system. Why is that?
So I think that the thinking is that, at least from what I've read, is that the argument is that the cash bail system disproportionately impacts minority communities. And by eliminating the practice, they want to help more ensure what they call a more equitable outcome. I don't know that, to me, that I can reconcile that with an equitable outcome.
Or evidence of this?
But then they're saying because you shouldn't be penalized for being poor. Is basically the bottom line, which I might tend to understand and agree with on certain offenses. Are you talking?
Like what? Like what would be one of those offenses? Make this make sense for me.
So most misdemeanors, if you got arrested for, say, a trespass charge, like you were banned. We have a lot of banning in Fort Wayne, so we have. We have a large homeless population, and sometimes they can become problematic at area businesses. So those businesses sign a form with our department to let us ban people if they're determined that they're not unwanted and they've been asked to leave several times. They keep coming back. We have the ability, with the business's permission, to ban that person. Once we ban them officially, then if they come back again, we can take them to jail for criminal trespass.
Okay.
So for me, that would be, and like we have here for most misdemeanors, that is a cashless bail. That for me would be okay. It's just a trespass. They weren't doing anything, like weren't physically harming anybody. They were just where they weren't supposed to be, where we told them not to go. or the business didn't want them and they kept returning. We have a lot of that.
Okay.
So something like that.
Okay. So then they kind of insert this mentality of you shouldn't be penalized for being poor if you can't afford
a driving
bond.
status. So you're driving while suspended, misdemeanors that you could go to jail for, or you don't have a license. You've never had a license.
But what about the people who are going to say, Sophia, and I'm sure you know what I'm about to say, but I mean, don't break the law then. Don't commit said crime. Don't be where you're not supposed to be.
Right. And that's fine. But for me, and if we're talking about if those things are, because most of the people that are going to be doing these kinds of things are indigent people. Most of the people on a trespass list in downtown Fort Wayne are homeless. They're indigent. They're poor. They're not going to be able to afford the $75 bail. So should they sit in jail until their court appearance? Which could be at this point, as they're running behind to catch up from several years from several months of pushing off court cases because of COVID. Now they're backlogged, so it might be months. Should they sit in jail for not adhering to a trespass versus someone who could get out because they had $75?
Right.
So that's where it gets. But if the crime is not a crime of injury or threat of injury to somebody else or something like that, it's a little more palatable. Say you never received a license, that's a jailable offense in the state of Indiana. If in your driving, we could take you to jail for that.
So I can
those
see
kind
the
of
argument
offenses,
for. In some scenarios, you shouldn't be penalized essentially for being poor, which is the argument that is being made by a lot of groups and organizations when it comes to getting rid of and or reworking the cash bail system. But specifically, I kind of want to talk about Illinois. As I mentioned, it's been announced. There's been a law enacted. Let's just say that they're getting rid of it. Just to kind of sum it all up here. I know you can kind of get into the more of the nitty gritty of it. January 1, 2023. I guess for me, Sophia, I mean, it's no secret if you listen to this program before, I'm in favor of the cash bail system. What's going to happen without it, or potentially what would happen without it? What could happen without it?
I think it's going to be a revolving door. We've seen this at other cities or other states that have implemented like these kind of practices. So there's a lot of cities around the nation that have implemented a cashless bail. Seattle's one of them. Houston's one of them.
But there's no other states that have actually done this before,
states who have not done statewide.
Yeah, to me, this is mind blowing to me.
It is mind blowing to me, and they're right. They butt up right against us. I think this is going to end up being like just a turnstile of crime, repetitive crime from the same people going over and over and over because you're not holding them. And the list is frightening of what the no cash bond bail, whatever, will be encompassing. So
do you have that list?
I do have that list. These are the non-detainable offenses. So these are things that people will just be arrested, they'll be processed, they'll be immediately let go. Aggravated battery, aggravated driving while intoxicated, intimidation, kidnapping, robbery, second-degree murder, threatening a public official, drug-related homicide, burglary, arson, and aggravated fleeing from an officer. Those are the ones and
second-degree murder.
And I don't know what that actually means in Illinois, but when I hear second-degree murder, I'm thinking, okay, I know what first-degree murder is here. I couldn't imagine second-degree murder or any kind of criminal recklessness or anything being allowed to just bond out or not bond out. You're just walking out.
Even kidnapping.
Yeah, so this is where it gets confusing. So this act is called actually the SAFE-T Act, which I'm like, wow, okay, that's a bad word to put on that. But so the SAFE-T Act states that a person will only be detained, which means kept in jail pending a cash bail posting, when it is determined that the defendant poses a specific, real, and present threat to a person or has a high likelihood of willful flight. And I'm thinking, you just kidnapped someone. Isn't that a threat to someone?
Or committed second-degree murder.
Yeah, or drug-related homicide. I mean, that's a threat to
aggravated
people.
Battery. You just physically harmed someone.
Any of those.
Okay, that's just dumb.
So
that's dumb.
It doesn't, in my brain, it doesn't calculate right, and I don't know if I'm understanding this right, or if maybe I'm just the weird one here.
No.
But
That's
it's not
the
equating
case.
in my brain.
Okay, you said earlier to us when you were explaining cash bail, you said, that 10% that you're going to pay, let's just use the $75 example that you gave us. The $75 they need to pay, that's to assure your attendance in court, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we eliminate the cash bail system in Illinois. Isn't there essentially then no consequence or nothing there to assure that you are going to appear in court?
Just your word.
That's
Yeah.
it? Like, okay, see you later, Barb. I'll be back for my court hearing. I
Yeah.
just committed second-degree murder. I just kidnapped this child. I'll be back. Am I understanding this correctly?
That's my understanding of how the cashless bail system will work. It's just
Well, then
your
why-
word. But I don't know. There's no. And as I dove into this, you get down these rabbit holes of I'm trying to keyword search things, and I'm finding all these things, and I found an article from somewhere that said that Washington D.C. was an early pioneer in pretrial reform. So they've been eliminating cash bail since the 1960s there. They said, according to this study, that they had 94% of defendants that are released pretrial. 91% of them appear in court for their trial.
I don't believe that, but okay,
I have
fine.
a hard time believing that too, because I Googled then what are the highest cities for the highest crime rate, and it was
DC.
Washington, D.C.
Of course.
With a 999.8% crime rate, or 999.8 crime rate per 100,000 people.
Wow.
So that's like almost 100 of 100,000
Yeah.
people are that. So, and their homicides are up 14% compared to 2021. Robberies up 24%, burglary by 8%, and motor vehicle theft by 4%. So they're actually increasing. I think they've taken bigger steps to eliminate the cash bail system there. Or if I'm not mistaken, I think they've completely eliminated it.
So in theory, by just looking at that particular study, those stats that you just pulled, eliminating the cash bail system makes your city more dangerous.
Yes. I mean, because I'm looking at the crime rate here for 2021 but 2022, and I know we're only like 9 months
Halfway
into
through, yeah.
it, but I mean, as I looked all over the nation, it looks like the cities that are predominantly cashless bail cities are the ones struggling right now with high numbers of crime. Seattle's another one.
Yeah.
They've eliminated it altogether. They have completely obliterated their police force. I mean, they're leaving in droves. They are so far down in numbers, but they're recording their highest number of homicides. They recorded their highest number in 2020 at 53. They saw 42 last year, while 2022 had already had 27. And, Chicago's another one. And that's in Illinois.
You're going to make Illinois a big Chicago. And we all know how rampant crime is in Chicago.
It's big. And because they do these things on per capita basis, because they have so many people,
yeah.
they don't rank really high. But they had 8 people die over the Labor Day weekend.
Yep.
And, there was a now former dispatcher. He got a lot of praise, and rightly so, when Ella French was shot and killed in Chicago. He was the dispatcher. He has recently left Chicago dispatching and taken a job elsewhere. But he did an interview, and he was saying that if an administration does not back its officers, they will go. That's why you're seeing the number of officers leaving Chicago so high. That's why it's so high, because they are not feeling the backing of their administrators. They just had a police chase where I think it was an armed robbery with shots fired, and I think someone was struck, and they were chasing them, and they were told to disregard the pursuit. Because they just don't chase in Chicago anymore. And these are people who have, I think they actually shot someone during the course of an armed robbery, and now they can't even chase the criminals there, and they know it. And they know, and even if they do get arrested, they're going to be right back out
there. Yeah,
because there's
no
a cashless
accountability.
bail system
Yeah.
here.
So, in your professional opinion, and let's go ahead and just pretend like that there is actual evidence that it does penalize, poor individuals. Let's just go ahead and say that there is evidence of that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but would it still be worth it to completely eliminate it?
In my professional opinion, no. And I want to be very specific, though, because there's a difference between offenses that are harmful to people and offenses that are maybe not so harmful to people. Yes, they're against the law, but you're not harming an individual.
Right. There
by
is a
doing
difference
it,
between trespassing.
Right? So I'm breaking into a car, I'm
kidnapping.
stealing something.
Yeah.
Is way different than me shooting someone and that I want to intentionally kill. And I get to get out free for both. That doesn't make any sense to me, because one I can understand. A lot of sometimes the juveniles too, or they're younger in age, or whatever. So breaking into a car for me is not as big of a deal as shooting someone or robbing a gas station or robbing a person or doing something like that to intentionally inflict harm on an individual. To me, they're two different things.
And I think that's fair. And I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Do you foresee, I think it's evident that, at least to me, and I think DC is actual proof and evidence that you had there, that things are going to get more dangerous. So do you think some of the repercussions would be, A, people fleeing Illinois, or like you said, with French there, people just leaving the force in general, and or C, or maybe it's all of the above. I mean, if I'm in Illinois, I'm either getting the heck out or I'm buying a gun when I hear this.
Yeah. There's so much packed into that.
I said from the beginning this was going to be a lot. We were diving into a lot.
I think people need to really be aware of what's happening. Right. So these things aren't just coming about out of thin air. These are people that are elected officials making the decisions on
moves.
your behalf.
Yeah.
So I think they're becoming more aware, and they're becoming more vocal about what they want and don't want, which is a great thing. I am all about civics. I'm all about, knowing what your rights are, knowing how you have impact where you do and what matters. So I think this is really making people take a look at, like, what are my representatives really doing, and are they representing me? And then I think that hopefully we'll get more people out to vote for people that align with their values. And if this doesn't align with your values, then figure out, what am I able to do? How can I talk to my representative?
Yeah.
How can I get an audience, and get in there and talk to them? It's like, this is not where I want the direction of the state to go, or my local municipality.
To me, I think it would really make residents and just communities in general just really vulnerable.
Yeah. And especially, some of these same cities have really, really tight gun restrictions as well.
Now that's a good point.
So, they're really hamstringing the general public, and also creating this recycled criminal element. And the Houston's another one.
What about Houston?
Houston's the same. They instilled some cashless bail, and I think the governor went in and implemented a statewide, no, this is what you have to have bail for. I think the governor stepped in last year in 2021 in July, I believe.
I missed that memo.
But they're still fighting there, and they have a revolving door of criminals. And I follow a Houston Police Department, their police union. They have a really good, they're very vocal on Facebook. They have a platform there, and they're really calling their politicians out and what's going on. And it's frightening down there. Of what's going on, and the people committing these crimes are just doing it over, and they're getting arrested, and they're just doing it over and over. So it really leads you to believe, like, why even bother arresting people?
Right. Right. That's what I'm
basically
saying.
What we're doing is we're giving them a ticket to appear, and then just sending them on their way. Why do we even have a jail?
Trusting your word that they're going to show up.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm glad it's not here. I'm glad we're not seeing that right now.
Well, that was going to be my next question, though, Sophia. Obviously we're neighbors, and let's just say, Joe, okay, I got my, like you said, my little ticket here, and I gave you my word that I'll be back for my kidnapping charge.
Yeah.
Who's to say they're just not going to come across the state line, hide out here?
But we still have bail here.
True. Okay, good point.
Yeah. We still have what I would consider a very pro-justice legislation. I think our legislators are really on the side of law enforcement and just the general public in terms of their safety. And I think that we'll be okay in the long run. Now, we do have a lot of people that come here because Fort Wayne, unfortunately, sits between Chicago, Toledo, Cleveland, Detroit, Indianapolis. So we're kind of like the middle of this drug corridor all around us. So we do see a lot of traffic through here of people from these other neighboring areas. So that's always something that's on our radar, and we know that. We get a lot of people here just appear, do some crime, and then take off again. So it's something we're aware of. But I think we're going to be okay at this point because we have the backing of the general public here.
Yeah.
And I've heard in Illinois that Chicago rules Illinois.
Yeah.
So whatever Chicago does, the rest of the state
Yeah.
is going to do because it's so densely populated.
That's unfortunate.
And they rule the state. I don't think we have that here at this point. I mean, Indianapolis really doesn't rule the state.
No, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I would agree
Yeah.
with that. Do you feel like this is kind of all part of that bigger rhetoric? I mean, we're starting to see it again, kind of from a lot of our policymakers. A lot of our lawmakers have taken on this kind of soft on crime mentality, and I'm not really sure why. I don't know if they're scared of lawsuits and hashtags or whatever it might be, but do you feel like this is just kind of another step in that direction of this soft on crime mentality?
I think that there are politicians among us that would like to see the country go in a different direction than where we've come from or where we think constitutionally we should be,
yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Without getting too political.
Yeah.
But I also think that there are a lot of people that enjoy how we are. And, as more immigrants come here from other countries and you really take a listen to them, I remember when I was younger, there was a Russian immigrant that my father knew. My father ran his own business, and he would come into that business, and we'd sit and talk for hours. And I didn't talk to him; I just listened because I was young. I didn't know, but they would talk. He would talk about gun rights and how wonderful it was to be in America, and I remember all those things and what he said about how they didn't have anything in Russia and they were told what to do and they couldn't have guns and all this stuff. And I just remember thinking, even back then, I'm like, God, how lucky I am to live here. I mean, even with everything going on and all the flaws we have and all the things we need to work on, I am still so happy that I was born in America and I'm an American citizen.
Yeah, amen to that. You and me both.
Because it's a lot worse. And I think until you really realize that from other countries and you've actually lived there under that rule of communism or socialism or something and really don't know, because I think we idealize some things.
Sure.
We cherry pick things out of socialism. Well, yeah, this is great. Yeah, but you don't see the backside of that. Yeah. People starving in the street.
You might like 2% of it, but you ain't going to like the other 98%.
Yeah, and I just think it's unfortunate. And that's why I think it's just important to educate yourself and don't take someone's opinion on something. Read up on cashless bail. Don't just take my opinion on it. These are my opinions and of just stuff I've read and things like that. But get on Google search, and everybody has their little say. I mean, I've pulled stuff from right-leaning things, left-leaning things, and you kind of meld them together. I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense, and they're kind of...
It's hard to cut through a lot of that BS sometimes.
Yes, it is, but I'd rather be the one cutting it than having it cut for me.
Yeah, amen to that.
I don't want to just listen to what someone says and say, oh, yeah, that's gospel. Research it. And sometimes I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I will say I'm wrong. If you say this is and I look at them, oh, you're right. I'll be more than happy to say I'm wrong. I mean, sometimes I hope I am wrong on some things.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Will this cashless bill in Illinois have to be something that like the Fort Wayne Police Department does get educated on and need to really be in the know about? Or is it kind of, you can...
No, we won't have anything really in there other than if a criminal comes over here. But even then...
what happens if they do? Let's say that this cash bill is eliminated. It's January 1, 2023, and a criminal does cross the border after just giving his little ticket and his wave and handshake goodbye for kidnapping or second-degree murder.
As long as he's not committing crimes here, there's really nothing. Yeah, there's nothing we're going to do with it. There's no crime that's committed or anything, but I would caution them from coming here because we do have bail here. We do have a very professional police department here. We'll handle our business that we need to. And, you know, I know people don't always like the way we do things, but if you think you've been wrong, the place for that is internal affairs, not arguing on the street.
Or in an email,
Yeah.
which, you know, it's kind of a great segue as we're wrapping up
Yeah.
here, Sophia. Next week, we got quite the email. I don't even know if we'll have time to share the whole email. That's how long the
It's a long
email
one.
is. There's a lot there. But let's just say it kind of has to do with that. There are some complaints, not specifically about one police department or another police department, just some kind of in general complaints. And I've already ran the email by you. I know that you've seen it because we want to obviously email this person back. But it has to do a lot about threats and harassment. And in the off the mic conversations that you and I have already had about this, I was already really mind blown by some things that you said that the Fort Wayne Police Department or Allen County Police Department can or cannot do when it just comes to threats and harassment.
Yeah.
So I think we got to address the email on the air.
Okay.
I think we need to talk about
can do
threats and
that.
harassment.
That's what we're all about, right? If you have
Yes.
a question, send it in. We'll try and get you an answer.
We actually have a text back line too that you can always chime in. If there's something you want Sophia and I to talk about or something that you want us to address, you can text us at 46862. Just make sure you put our names in it or unholstered, so we know that you're talking to us, because multiple stations here at the studios use the text back line. So 46862, Sophia, I cannot wait to get into that one next week here on the show. If you've missed any previous episodes of Unholstered, you can always download the Unholstered podcast pretty much anywhere you download a podcast. Just search for Unholstered and you will find it there. Of course, we're here every weekend on WoWo Saturday mornings. That's another way that you can tune in. But until next weekend, your town, your team, your topics, Unholstered.
Thanks for listening to Unholstered. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen. And remember, you can listen every Saturday morning at 10:30 on WoWo 1190 and 107.5 FM.
Podcasts by Federated Media.